Hey there, fellow tamers and Digidestined. It's Mike, aka Sinaku from Overground, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the first episode of our BT4 Rainbow series. If you're unfamiliar with the series, this is where we take one deck of every color. We build our favorite decks based on our favorite Digimon, our favorite strategies, our favorite archetypes, just anything that catches our eye, and this is basically just what we build out of our initial pull of our initial series of boxes. So if you might have seen in the last video that we just posted with the Blue MirageGaogamon deck, we did mention that we were going to be opening up 6 boxes, and we did live stream those box openings on our Twitch channel that I will leave a link below if you want to go back and revisit that. We got some pretty awesome pulls. We pulled I think 3 Lucimon total, which was just awesome. And then one of them was the Altart. We also got 1 Altart each of the Ancient Greymon and the Ancient Garurumon, all in the same box, which was just bananas. So yeah, if you guys want to watch that, if you're interested in that, feel free to check out that as well. But anyway, what you're looking in front of you now is the blue deck that we've decided to build for the Rainbow series. And for the blue deck, we already covered Imperial Digimon a couple weeks ago, so we didn't really want to include that again in the Rainbow series. So instead, we're focusing on a bit of a different deck, and this might be considered competitive. It might be considered a bit of a lower tier deck, but it's still a lot of fun. And this is the Gaogamon deck, based on the Gaomon line. Gaomon, if you're familiar, is a Digimon from Digimon Savers. He's Thomas's main partner, and he goes all the way up the chain into MirageGaogamon, which we'll talk to as we get further down the deck. So, well, what's in the deck? So we're going to start with 4 copies of Upamon. Again, this kind of goes in line with the same argument for not having the 5th baby in the Imperial Digimon deck. We're just finding that in testing lately in most of our BT4 matches, we're not necessarily hatching the 5th egg as often or as necessary. And since the concept of this deck is just primarily to kind of keep your opponent off of their board, the Upamon was kind of the best baby to pick. It was just the best generic option in terms of what we could do. I think another good option for this deck could actually be the Wanyamon, that if your opponent has nothing without a source, it gives your Digimon plus 2,000. Because in this deck, the highest DP that we can cap out at is 14,000, which means if we run into a Chaosmon or an Omnimon or something in security, our turn's just pretty much done. And there is kind of a cool OTK combo that's built into this deck that we've built this deck around, but that OTK combo goes down the drain if our opponent has real big bodies hiding in their security. So if there's a way to kind of get our DP levels to like 15 grand, is kind of, or maybe 16 even could be the sweet spot, that might be the way to go. So there is an argument to play Wanyamon as well, just because we're kind of controlling and bouncing our opponent's board back so many times that they're going to be put in situations where they might have to hard play Digimon, and that'll make Wanyamon live. But for now, Upamon's just really good to kind of keep getting that consistency, keep getting that drop power. And then we're moving on to our rookies. We're playing a very thin rookie lineup, and that's because we're playing 4 copies of Tobyumon. But our 4 rookies we're maxing out with 4 copies of Emon, 4 copies of Galmon, and 4 copies of Elecmon. Giveon's just here because it has jamming, which is very powerful for a level 3. 4 copies of Galmon. This is the Galmon that has the Digiburst inheritable. So I think pretty much every color in the game got one, maybe except for yellow, that if these get detached to activate a Digiburst effect, we get to add them back into our hand. So by having a smaller amount of rookie count, by having a 3-cost champion as well, similar to how we played Repamon in yellow, it's constantly recurring. So every time we detach from Digiburst, it goes back to our hand, which means we have another rookie immediately. We can evolve over top of our Digi-Egg when we do hatch if necessary, so we don't have to worry about playing a higher count of rookies. It does give us the opportunity to potentially brick in the early game where we don't draw a rookie, but we still do have that 3-cost champion to kind of supplement that slot to play early on in the game. So moving on to our champions, we talked about Tobyumon. He's just a quick 1-cost evolution, similar to Gorillomon as well, but he's 3-cost to hard play instead of 6, which is very, very powerful. Moving on to 3 copies of Lobomon. Lobomon's here because we play a hefty tamer count in the form of 3 Davis and the 2 Thomas. And the reason Lobomon isn't here is just kind of give our tamers a bit more utility and give us more opportunities to close out the game if it gets to that point, if necessary. Just because it's a really strong card overall, and because we're already playing tamers, he synergizes with that as well. Playing 2 copies of Gorillomon already, as well as a 1-cost evolution, kind of speed into our end game a little bit faster, and 2 copies of Grizzlymon, because we just want to have a blocker in the deck just in case of situations arises where opponents trying to rush us. Now, our ultimate lineup is where things get a little bit more interesting. We're playing 4 copies of the MirageGaogamon. Now, the first thing you'll notice that we're not playing the actual Gaogamon champion line. This is the one where you Digiburst 2 to get the draw card, and that's because I found that I wanted my Digiburst to be more powerful in my top end, so we're not including him right now for the time being. But anyway, the MirageGaogamon's effect is that for Digiburst 2, we get to return a level 4 lower Digimon to our owner's hand, and we can trash all Digivolution sources underneath them. And as heritable is that if we have a tamer in play, our Digimon gets plus 2,000, just total, which is actually really, really, really strong. So what MirageGaogamon does, it allows us to kind of keep putting pressure on our opponent by keep constantly bouncing back their smaller Digimon. So level 4 is champion or below, which means we can actually bounce back their blockers to try to snipe them per game, even though as we get to the end of our top end, you'll notice that we don't actually care that much about blockers really in the end of the game. But it also helps us, bounce back any level 4 that our opponent could be building up to an ultimate or a mega, or bounces back any rookies that our opponent could be going wide with to try to finish us off. Next, we're playing the WereGarurumon. This is the promo box topper WereGarurumon that you got out of 1.0 and 1.5 boxes. And his, we're not using it for his main effect, but we're mainly using him for his inheritable. And his inheritable is if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, this Digimon gains security attack +1. We found that this was a little bit easier to trigger than the other WereGarurumon from the starter deck, whereas if your opponent has something without a source, you get security attack +1 because that's a little bit easier to play around. But whereas with the WereGarurumon, you're generally in blue just by default going to have a really big hand. So the odds of you not having 8 cards in hand are very, very small. And if your opponent does end up putting something down without a source and you do attack with Upamon, you can draw that 8th card and then just go to town. And the reason this is very powerful is because we'll skip ahead to talk about Thomas real quick. Thomas says that during our main phase, if our opponent has 8 or more cards in hand on their side, we can suspend this tamer and unsuspend one of our Digimon with Gao in its name. So that means when we Digivolve our MirageGaogamon over our WereGarurumon, we can attack for security attack +1, tap our Thomas, untap our MirageGaogamon, swing again for security attack +1. If we have another Thomas, we can untap again and then swing and potentially take all 5 cards out of our security. It's kind of like a worse All-Force Digimon at the end of the day, but it requires a lot less setup because All-Force doesn't require, MirageGaogamon doesn't require having multiple tamers in play, just having Thomas specifically. So if we can pull off this bit of an OTK combo here, that's really cool. So it's just kind of in there to be a little more aggressive if necessary. And finally, we're rounding off our ultimate line with 2 copies of Monzaemon, just because we want a little bit more speed to kind of get up into our final forms. So for the megas, we're playing 4 copies of MirageGaogamon. Now he has a 4 cost to evolve, but don't let that fool you. His effect says that when digivolving, if for every 4 cards in our opponent's hand, we actually gain 1 memory back. Now ideally in a game of Digimon, the odds of your opponent having less than 4 cards in hand are usually very small unless they're playing some sort of like rookie rush strategy where they're playing cards out of their hand relatively quickly. But just the way the game is designed in terms of you're always replacing your cards through Digivolution, you're always generally going to have a relatively large hand size. And what this allows us to do is that we can actually evolve into MirageGaogamon for 3 at least, or potentially even less if our opponent has an even grander hand size. We can actually get memory back with this as well. Probably not like too much memory back, but we could potentially evolve him for free by, or at least maybe 2. Like he becomes a cheap mega that's very, very powerful. And he clocks in at 12,000 DP, and his effect is that he's just unblockable. That's it. He cannot be blocked. So, out of all the new 1-cost blockers that have been introduced in the format, out of all the ways that your opponent's going to set up a blocker to try to avoid a game shot, he phases directly right through them. And that's what makes this combo with WereGarurumon so strong. Because normally when you have a Digimon with security attack +1, or you have a Digimon that has the ability to attack multiple times, your opponent will just put their blocker up against that one specifically to avoid taking that much damage. But MirageGaogamon in combination with WereGarurumon means that you're going to be getting through those security checks and just phase through any potential ways of your opponents protecting themselves. So the only thing that can actually save them is if you check something in security that's bigger than MirageGaogamon, which under Aware he'll only be 12. So, you're playing with a little bit more fire there, but the potential to just close out a game within a turn or 2 is just too good to ignore. And then we're going to play into our next mega, which is ZeedGarurumon. He's another new card from BT4. And his, he digivolves for 4, but his effect is that when digivolving, you get to Digiburst 2, and you return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to their owner's hand and trash all sources as well. So you'll notice here that we have a trend here. We're constantly returning things to our opponent's hand, and that's because we want to keep increasing our opponent's hand size to maximize the amount of memory that we can reduce MirageGaogamon by, so we can evolve and not end our turn. But furthermore, we want to keep cards in our opponent's hand because that means that our Thomas will be live to potentially get extra attacks out of MirageGaogamon. And the reason this is so powerful is because it actually forces our opponent to play down their hand awkwardly, because by playing more cards, they're actually outplaying us. Whereas if they're keeping cards close to the chest, they're actually giving us more potential to OTK them, which is actually really strong and kind of a weird roundabout strategy that we don't really see in Digimon before, because usually in any TCGs, it's generally the most advantage wins. But in this deck, MirageGaogamon kind of punishes you for maintaining advantage, which is actually really neat and really different, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, so between MirageGaogamon and Zigurumon, we can keep kind of keeping our opponent's rookies and their ultimates at bay, kind of putting them back in their hand. The biggest issue that this deck has is dealing with big established megas, but that's what we have other removal cards here at the back end of the deck for as well. So to round off the deck with Tamers, we've got 3 copies of Davis. This is just a consistency piece. We get to look the top 3 out of blue Digimon to our hand, and we get set to 3 every turn. This is also a combo with Lobomon, because if we do have extra Davises in play, or just one as well, we can evolve into Lobomon to potentially snipe an extra hit off our opponent. And then we've got 2 copies of Thomas. We established what he does already, but he has another effect where on play for 3 costs, we just get to draw 1. So just free cycle, which is actually really neat. It's a Gabumon in Tabor form of sorts. And then we're playing 2 copies of Heat Viper and 2 copies of Cocytus Breath. So this kind of keeps the trend of returning cards back to our opponent's hand to kind of give them more advantage to generate our effects from triggering. And so Aqua Viper reads, if you can return 1 Digimon you have to its owner's hand, to return 2 of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to their hand as well. So this kind of helps you, again, clear out any boards that are going a little bit wider. Yeah, just all around really good card. It helps return 2 cards back into your opponent's hand to put them at a potentially bigger hand size to trigger all your stuff. And then we're playing 2 copies of Cocytus Breath. Cocytus Breath is mainly here because level 6 is kind of the level to beat with this deck, and we need another way to return those Digimon to the hand to just clear them in general, but also because we just have a difficult time getting over them. And that's another reason why we're playing 2 copies of Omnimon as well, because he can evolve on top of our Mirages or Azids to clear any Digimon that hit that 15,000 threshold that we just cannot beat, or any Digimon that we literally just can't return to the hand. But yeah, so that's going to be our first draft of the MirageGaogamon deck. This is the first deck in our Rainbow series. It's going to be the blue color, and it's going to be represented in the upcoming Rainbow Rumble series. So this is a series we tried to do a little while ago back in 1.0, but we ended up scrapping it just because... one deck kind of overpowered everything else, and I kind of feel that the decks we built for the Rainbow series this time are generally on even ground, so I look forward to seeing how it does in the series as soon as that's done, finished being filmed. But yeah, if you enjoyed this deck, please like the video. Please comment in the video if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions about it as well. If there's anything you would do with this deck to make it a little bit different, please let me know. If there's anything that you feel that I might have missed in the overall kind of Gaogamon's archetype as a whole, let me know as well. But yeah, if you like the video and you like what we do here at the Overground, please consider subscribing and helping us reach our next milestone of 400 subscribers. But I have been Mike, aka Sanaku, once again, thanking you guys for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.